Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles, bringing you the best TV shows and movies weekly in an easily digestible podcast packed with laughs by me, Ross Bolen, and my dear friend, Mr. Barrett Dudley. Barrett, how are you on a fine Tuesday afternoon?
I'm okay. Right now I am in full yard work mode. I'm
Been doing some yard work.
I'm labor man Barrett.
Okay, you got dirty shoes
I've
on.
got dirty
It's a
shoes
rare thing
on.
for you, yeah.
Oh no, I came straight from the pitch. But I took the day off. Took the day off work today even.
No shit.
Yeah,
You're working now.
Because I am
Part-time.
I am towards the end of finishing up this patio paver project in the backyard, and I'm lugging 50-pound pavers to and fro, Ross. I need 50 of these bad boys. I can only do 14 in the car at one time. That's you know what I mean. That's 4 trips just for the freaking pavers
To
here.
and from where?
To and fro, the back of the car to the yard. You know,
so they all get
I got to load them up at Home Depot onto the cart, and then I got to bring them out, and then I got to put them in the car, and then I got to take them out of the car, and then I got to put them out in the backyard. It's
heavy lifting.
This very, very heavy lifting. But
You feel strong like a man.
I do feel strong like a man. Every time I'm doing something like this, well, okay, many things to say. One, I just keep telling myself, this is how Brad Pitt got the body that he has in Once Upon a Time.
Yard work.
In Hollywood. It's
hard
just,
yard work.
It's mechanic and yard work, and there's
Moving
no
heavy object labor.
Yeah, right. That's a labor body. That's not a gym body.
Yeah, you can't get that body from a gym. Dude.
No.
That's moving around heavy shit in your yard.
Yeah. So I keep telling myself that. And then
how's that going?
And then also, it's fine. You know,
Okay.
I'm close to the end, and I'll just add here that there's nothing like that. There really is nothing like a there's a ranking. People have done this on Instagram. They've memed it. They've ranked it. It's like the best beers.
Sure.
Straight from like Middle Class Fancy, right?
Right.
And
one of our favorite Instagram accounts at Middle Class Fancy. Shouts to Middle Class Fancy. Great follow.
The best the best beers are always like post-work beers. It's the
most refreshing beer you can
so
have.
my favorite has always previously been like the Après ski beer, because your muscles are tired, you've been out there grinding.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Après?
I've never known APRES. I've always just looked at it and gone, nah, it's not. That one's not for me. Not a skiing guy.
That's always been I think my number one. I think it still is, but to achieve that same sensation in a warm weather climate, it's yard work. That's it.
This is why some of the CrossFit freaks, they do their CrossFit thing in their box, as they call it.
Yeah.
And then they like to go get a beer with the boys and the girls afterwards, because it's
a Michelob Ultra, most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah,
and that's you know what? I'm not saying they're getting the full enjoyment that you did. I think you're on a different level. But those people, that's what they're going for. That's what they're trying to achieve. It's that same kind of feeling that you get out after the skiing or after the hard labor of the yard work, when a beer is that's what it was meant for. It's peak right there. It's best possible moment.
Yeah, exactly.
For those of you who don't drink, maybe it's like I don't know. I don't really have a beverage anymore. I just smoke weed after everything.
Right. Well, that's,
Finish a workout, smoke a ball.
Do you get the same sensation from that?
Fuck no, totally different. Totally different type of deal. But I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
So
on the other hand, well, like you said, now here I am at work, and they call this the business that doesn't sleep for a reason.
Yeah.
The podcasting, right?
Yeah,
there are no days off.
Ever.
It's just it's
a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. It's a grind, and so I had to get in here to talk at you about some stuff.
I can't wait for you to talk at me. I would like for us to start that very segment where you talk at me about all the things and the stuff and the tids and the bits right now.
Right now. Okay. All right. Well, the first thing I'm actually not going to I'll converse with you, because I noticed on your Twitter account you salted Chance the Rapper's picks for Jim Carrey top 5.
I have a story for you here.
And you listed your top 5, and I need clarification on whether that was your legit Jim Carrey top 5, or whether you were making a point about how Jim Carrey's best movies are not, in fact, the ones where he, hits the mat with his dramatic chops. But in all honesty, they are him saying, California. Nice. Lovely this time of year.
Those are the Jim Carrey lines I'm here for. Okay?
What a pathetic loser.
Chance the Rapper, very well-known hip-hop artist, Chance, from Chicago, the Windy City, Chi-Town, put out a tweet. He just said, Jim Carrey, And then he put The Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine, Man on the Moon, and The Grinch, all of which you could vote on one of the four as your favorite, I guess. The Truman Show winning out at 37%, and I would argue the only one that deserves a place on that. Potentially Eternal Sunshine if you're like super depressed and crazy.
People love Eternal Sunshine.
It's a great
I've
movie.
actually never seen it.
Barrett, it's phenomenal, but it's one of the more heartbreaking movies I've ever seen. The entire thing is about a man whose relationship falls apart, and he spends some time. All I can say without spoiling anything is he doesn't want to remember.
Right.
He doesn't want this memory of this relationship, this love he had, to be something that he carries with him. So I responded to Chance. And I just put, Chance's choices are trash. I quote tweeted him, and I put Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Liar, Liar. My point was more like, these are the movies and that streak you and I have spoken to that Jim Carrey had.
Yes.
One of the hottest streaks anybody's ever had in Hollywood, like back-to-back classic comedies that enabled him to do all the other things that Chance put in his list. And when you think of Jim Carrey, if you want to give him his due and proper, you think of the ones that I threw out there. Those are the ones that made him the Hollywood A-list cornerstone comedian that he is, right? Mm-hmm. Along with the things that he did building up to those points, you could argue, like in Living Color, all the different shit he did on TV. But when I think of Jim Carrey, and I consider myself to be one of the bigger Jim Carrey fans on the planet, I would go face-to-face, toe-to-toe with anybody who thinks they know more about Jim Carrey and Jim Carrey movies than me. These are the four that, for me, put him there forever, right, as one of the greats. So I just thought his list was shitty. And here's the most beautiful part of this situation. Chance saw my tweet, followed me, didn't give me a like or a reply. He just respected the rebuttal so much that he said, fuck it, follow. And then just moved on with his life. Didn't want to argue, didn't want to have a conversation, just gave me the follow and bounced. And he's not one of those dudes that follows like 200,000 people, so I felt cool about that.
Well, now you better, now you're in a situation where you're going to have to remember that every time you venture into tweeting about the realm of hip hop. Because Chance, kind of sensitive about about all that, about the whole thing.
Yeah, and he's not my fave. I won't lie to you. All right, I liked acid rap or whatever.
The most recent album was a
disaster.
Was a tough look for my guy Chance.
Total disaster. Yeah. He's got lawsuits all over the place with his manager and shit as a result. Like it's a mess. But I did catch the follow, which is huge for all of us, and I defended the good name of Jim Carrey in his 4 best films, which I'm also very proud of.
Yes.
Huzzah.
Yes. Somebody
stop me.
My takeaway from the whole interaction was that I've not seen Eternal Sunshine, but I know that people think very, very highly of that movie. Just from your brief synopsis there, it sounds like one that I may never check out because that's a tough watch. That sounds like a rough hang.
Barrett, it's one of the more brutal films. Like, I put it in the same category with, like, Requiem for a Dream and Train Stopping. Yeah. Like, it is nonstop ass-kicking. Like, an emotional beatdown that most of us don't need.
Right.
Especially now.
Yes, right,
So Truman Show was made for, like, 1999 to be wild. Like, you know what I mean? Just watched in a period of American history where there was very little turbulence compared to now. It's just brutal. I mean, I'm sorry, Eternal Sunshine, not Truman Show. Truman Show, a very fun.
Yeah, well, so
I don't think anybody thinks it's a great movie.
Two of the movies on the list, Man on the Moon and The Truman Show, I think very highly of, and those are what I consider my favorite Jim Carrey doesn't just be a comedian films.
Sure.
The issue with the Chance list is the inclusion of The Grinch.
What is he thinking there?
It's that's a trash Christmas movie. It's a bad Christmas movie. And this year I caught for the first time in several years the actual like animated one.
Yeah.
And there's no competing with that, man. Not only is it featured in Home Alone, arguably the best Christmas movie of all time, but it then on its own it totally stands. You got the great Grinch song. I'm not here for Jim Carrey's The Grinch, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry if that offends anybody.
I'm not really either, and I love Jim Carrey. Look, I'll watch a few minutes of it if it's on during Christmas or whatever, but like that's not one I'm throwing in my Christmas rotation. It's not one we ever mention when we talk Christmas greats. Look, was it fun? Did he get a bag off of it? I'm sure.
Yes.
Can The Grinch be redone over and over? Whatever, fine. But like you said, the OGs is the cartoon is the one, and I don't need a Jim Carrey Grinch really. His list was. Oh, by the way. This will disturb you. Here's the results from his poll. 84,824 people voted. 37% The Truman Show. 30.2% Eternal Sunshine. 4.8% Man on the Moon. And then 28% The Grinch, which just tells me that a lot of Chance's audience was like, Jim Carrey. The Grinch.
The Grinch, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't
very,
translate to Gen Z like he does with us.
No. And I'm honestly, I guess it's actually encouraging that the Truman Show won out with 37%.
At least people were like, well, this is one of the clear options.
Yeah, because the other, what that's telling you is that none of his followers have seen Man on the Moon, which is definitely like a more like niche, like biopic, you know. Really...
Not everybody's watching Man on the Moon.
Exactly. Yes. Right. So that one's definitely not for everybody. So good. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I'm glad we brought this up. It was an interesting interaction, and again, I'm very upset by his rankings. I hope I brought some clarity to the situation.
Yes. Okay. Let's move on. HBO Max, Warner Brothers. We've talked at length about the the whole thing that they're doing here with the. We're going to be able to watch their big title releases right on the streaming services. You can go see it in theaters if you want to, but it is right in our homes. And
same day.
We may have forgotten a little bit about this because they haven't done their January release. December was Wonder Woman, and I've just kind of like lost it. And I knew that there was a Denzel Washington picture coming up, but this weekend during the football games, I started to see the trailers for it. And The Little Things,
dude,
starring Denzel, Jared Leto, and Rami Malek, looks awesome. And it's coming out this Friday on HBO Max.
I finally watched a trailer. I watched trailer 2, if I'm not mistaken. The second trailer they put out. I had kind of, I think we had touched on this a little bit, did we not? Like the cast and how deep it is, or was that something else?
That's a new David O. Russell film.
Okay, you're right. That was the David O. Russell film. But running the trailer, was the most excited I've been based on a trailer in a minute. At least in the past 6 months or so that I can remember. It's been a minute since I saw a trailer for something that I forgot was coming, didn't really have any hype around or information about. The little things, though, and there's that line, and Denzel says, like, it's the little things that get you caught. They're tracking a serial killer, right? And it appears that the serial killer is our boy...
Jared
Leto, who is one of the creepier, weirder dudes in Hollywood. He probably should just do exclusively serial killer roles from here on out, as he destroyed the Joker and maybe ruined Batman for an entire generation. I cannot wait to watch this. When is it available?
Friday.
This Friday. And now I have something to do Friday night.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
So just kind of bring that into the to the top of mind, because
trailer got you though.
That's some. Oh yeah. And I mean, like I was intrigued by the cast, and I was like, oh yeah, this one I had on the list of like, oh, that's probably not a movie I would have gone to theaters for.
Right.
But now you're just giving me this one with like 3 great actors, and it's like a psycho thriller, and like got a murderer and Denzel being a badass cop, and then Rami Malek on the side. And like
they like team up too, and
right. That's what it looks like.
They're different.
And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. Now that you're just giving me this hot piece of ace right here on my streaming service, well, yeah, I'm gonna watch that.
It's completely changed the way all of us look at new movies, though. It's like if it's available for me on my couch at home, that's a totally different deal. How many movies back in the day, like let's say 5 years ago, would you see the trailer for and go, well, that's one I'll watch when I catch it on HBO streaming in a year?
A lot.
That happened all the time. Now we're in a situation where we've gone a step further, and some of these big titles, as a result of the pandemic and the streaming wars, will be available for us to watch in our homes, on our couches, day of theater release. And this gritty psychological thriller, right up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Absolutely.
Rami Malek, Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, bring it on. Can't wait for Friday.
Okay, so speaking of the availability of things, over the past few weeks, I've been talking a little bit about how I'm catching up on the miniseries that was originally debuted on the Paramount Network, starring Taylor Kitsch and Michael Shannon, along with the rest of the Boardwalk Empire cast, the Waco.
Waco, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Have you finished Waco?
So I got through 4 episodes out of the 6 on Waco.
Okay.
A couple nights goes by, queue up the Netflix again. It's not in my continue watching list.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why did it get dropped out of there? I go to the search. I search for it. Search for Waco. Like nothing's coming up. I'm like, there's no way. There is no way that I just happened to start watching this
right before
and
they
get
took it off.
2/3 of the way through before it left Netflix. That's exactly what happened, Ross. It left Netflix on January 16th after I'd gotten through after I had gotten through 4 of the 6. And currently, the only way to watch it is to rent the episodes or the season through Prime or iTunes, and they want $3 per episode. And we're sitting on the couch like, okay, it's only $7 to finish this. But at the same time, we're on principle here. And we're already paying for all the streaming bullshit.
And this was just free.
And do we think that the series, that this show is good enough to finish for $7? And we're both like, no, we can wait until it comes back around.
I like that. I respect this move.
Yeah, no, you cannot have my $7 for the last 2 episodes. But
I think that's a wise choice.
So, you know me. I go down wormholes every now and then, and kind of get like a little bit obsessive about something.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, all right, where is this going to come back? Right, because I can't really figure out who produced it or who made it, but it's on
who's in charge of this?
Who's in charge here?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Which brings me to my first point: is that the Paramount Network, which I think is going to be wrapped up into like Showtime and CBS and all of that at some point here, does not show its hottest properties on the Paramount Network ever. You can't just tune into the Paramount Network and they're like cruising through some Yellowstone episodes.
Okay.
Or re-showing Waco. It's like a bunch of whack-ass movies and some random television shows but it's really weird because they've basically had 2 big-time properties,
right,
neither of which they seem to ever rerun or show again. And so I thought, okay, well, that's weird because I've got Paramount Network through YouTube TV. And I was like, maybe that's one way. Maybe I can just catch like they'll show some reruns. They'll do a little marathon of Waco. No, they don't. And they don't really show Yellowstone either. Yellowstone, for what it's worth, also, don't forget, is not on the Paramount app. It is on Peacock, the app, not tied to CBS at all. So this is all, this spaghetti bowl is where things get really, really weird with everything that's happening right now because it's like one company who's owned by a major, it could be owned by Disney, could be owned by CBS, could be owned by Warner Brothers, whoever, makes something, but then occasionally they'll option that out. Their own properties don't take it up. They don't show it. So we'll put that over, on what's it called?
Right.
It's like Modern Family is one of these. Like I don't think Modern Family was an ABC show. Like I think it was actually a CBS production that the CBS passed on, ABC picked up, and so you got to have the whole thing. And
that's where the weirdness
I might be wrong there with Modern Family in particular, but there's
a lot of examples.
There's
like
some
this,
famous show like that was like a massive hit for a network.
Right.
That actually wasn't even the network's own property.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it's their contracts, the different production studios that are involved, and it becomes very difficult in some of these circumstances, especially if a show is canceled on one network, picked up on another, then moves to Netflix, gets pulled off Netflix, and then it's like there are these crazy deals that take place a lot of the time before. I've had that happen. I can't remember what it was where I was watching a show, it got pulled from the platform I was watching it on, and then I Googled to see when it would be available on another streaming service, and that information was not readily available yet because the deal hadn't been done.
Yeah. So
it really it is like, for some of these shows and some of these productions, it becomes a matter of, will someone come and scoop this, or what's going on with the network it was originally on? And so many of the streaming wars are still being figured out in the way of what you were just speaking to. There's so many platforms. We talk about this almost every week at this point. Having to worry about shit like Peacock is a nightmare. Paramount, all these different places you're having to go, and being unsure about what the final end game is. We just watched HBO attempt this, right? They have 3 different apps. Now they're all directing us to one, HBO Max. They've figured it out. They seem to be on the right page. Everybody's got the same goal, picture, whatever. HBO's figured it out. Warner's figured it out. But there's still other ones where I'm very confused about what the hell they're doing.
Well, so to continue down this wormhole, that's the top layer, right? That all this is very confusing. And like you're saying, it's kind of all over the place and can get very tough to pick out.
I mean, even The Office recently leaving and then bouncing. It's stuff like that's constant now.
So it turns out that the Waco miniseries was originally being produced. It was brought to and being produced by the Weinstein Company.
Oh, Harvey.
And Bob. Yes. And so then I started doing the deep dive into the Weinstein Company. And so
you went down a deep rabbit hole.
Yes, I went so deep, dude. So obviously, first and foremost here, Harvey Weinstein was a monster, and he's getting everything that he deserved. And I'm glad that his company fell apart.
Yes.
So all of that.
Still weird seeing his name on old movies and shit.
Yeah. So I just want to put that up top. That is obviously
Harvey
the headline.
Weinstein, monster, trash human. Yes.
And so that was what is most important about the whole thing. But because that was such big news, and because that was such just overtook and like basically launched the Me Too movement.
And it changed Hollywood
Time's
forever,
up,
yeah.
and it changed Hollywood, right? Well, so what kind of got lost in all of that is that the Weinstein Company ended up going bankrupt.
Okay.
They had a shit ton of debt. And they, there was like and they had partnered or paired with Miramax at one point, who did like all the Matt Damon, like the Good Will Hunting and all the Jay and Silent Bob films and like a bunch of other shit. And the Weinstein Company was kind of known for, it was Oscars fare usually, right? Shakespeare in Love, I think, was like the first big one that like really took the Weinstein Company to that
Academy Awards level,
to that Academy Awards level, into the upper echelon of like production studios or whatever. And so they had been kind of like on the downslide leading up to all the Harvey Weinstein stuff anyway.
Got it.
They had a ton of debt. You can dig up like they owe money. They still owe money to like lots of people. They owe money to the estate of David Bowie. They owe money to like to actors that and stuff. Yeah. And so, I keep going down the wormhole, and there is a company, the company that finally ended up acquiring the Weinstein Company is Lantern Entertainment, which is two guys out of Dallas who started the Lantern Group and acquired the rights to the Weinstein Company for $289 million. And they say that they did not buy or own any of the debt. So they are not liable for any of the currently still outstanding debts from the Weinstein Company.
That is wild.
So
just two random dudes?
Waco was part of the TV development department of the Weinstein Company. It does not seem to have been included in Lantern Entertainment's purchase. They got all the movie stuff, including some properties that were still kind of floating out about there. There was one that I think eventually did get released called The Upside, starring Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart. There was a Benedict Cumberbatch and Michael Shannon film called The Current War, which was about the battle between Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse. Basically, like, you can spend as much time as you want to reading all about like all the properties that the Weinstein Company owned or didn't own or then had to let go. There were fights about several. Many were sold outside of this sale to Lantern Group, like In the Heights, which did get bought by Warner Brothers, and is coming.
So as a separate piece of property.
As a separate piece of property.
Wow.
So they kind of like were having like a bit of a yard sale with some of their properties. Anyway, Lantern Entertainment is on Twitter. They almost never tweet, but they have some followers and they seem to exist. And so I tweeted at them asking if they owned the rights to Waco, and they did not get back to me.
Oh, damn it.
So I'm trying my best here to sleuth this thing and figure out who the hell owns Waco right now and where might it go next.
Lantern Entertainment, by the way, 78 followers on Twitter. A new entertainment company committed to producing compelling content across all platforms, which I have to say is the most generic goal in the history of entertainment.
So yeah, they're like squatting. I think that they hope to these properties that the titles that they do own as part of the Weinstein Company basically like appreciate and then make them money somehow.
Because their website takes you to a 1014 error.
Whether it's through streaming or whether they're going to option these movies to various streaming services, or whether they're just going to kind of sit on this and then repackage it and sell it piecemeal or resell the whole thing and make a profit. Who knows? Because they kind of picked Weinstein Company up off the scrapyard, if we're being honest here.
Yeah. Obviously, $289 million for many. If you told me they bought 5 movies for that.
No,
much.
yeah. What is like they got like 300 films, I think 300 titles, somewhere around there.
The King's Speech, The Artist, Inglourious Bastards, Silver Linings Playbook,
a couple of Quentin Tarantino movies.
The Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, Scary Movie, Children of the Corn. I mean, it's a lot of random shit.
So I won't bore you guys any further. If you want to do more research, you can here. But this brings me to the last thing. As I was reading through all of this, it turns out one of the movies that finally kind of like that started to break the camel's back for the Weinstein Company was a 2015 film called Burnt, starring Bradley Cooper. Did you see this?
Was this the cooking one?
The chef one.
I remember the trailer and being like, nope.
So and this is an interesting one to me for a lot of reasons, but I think it's just kind of like a case study of like films that should have worked that were utter catastrophes and flops. And this one, I believe, was like loosely based or was referencing Anthony Bourdain quite a bit. Like I'm not sure if it was based on Kitchen Confidential or if it just
sort of
like
inspired
inspired by it. But Bradley Cooper is very much supposed to be. He's like out of rehab. He's back in like the French restaurant scene. He is very much an Anthony Bourdain character. This is another film that has an absolutely flooring ensemble cast, like Uma Thurman, Emma Thompson, Lily James, Matthew Rhys, Sienna Miller. Like it goes on. And this could have been a really badass movie, but it's one of the many that gets caught up in like production issues and recasting or like director changes, or this one went through a bunch of name changes because there was the Jon Favreau movie
Chef.
Already called Chef in development, so they had to rename it, and they named it like whatever this guy's name was, the chef's name, like Matt James or whatever. That's not it. That's the new Bachelor. And then it settled on Burnt. They wanted a January release, but they ended up having to release it in October, and it was just like, I don't know. Like, I really want to starting to read about the Weinstein Company movie, and then specifically about getting to Burnt. I need a podcast about this, man.
Yeah,
I
this
need
is
like
the saga.
I need somebody to take the legwork from here and do a podcast, and we can include like
downfall of the Weinstein.
Yeah, obviously the Harvey being a monster and a serial predator was and a sexual offender is a giant piece of this. But regardless of that, if that had ever happened, like this was a company that was flailing and going to get like, picked for scraps in any way.
Which is not something that I think most of us realize.
Right, yeah,
obviously.
exactly.
By the way, speaking of Burnt, inspired by Gordon Ramsay, who coached Bradley Cooper for the movie, and Anthony Bourdain, who wrote the memoir that inspired Kitchen, which it must be something I don't. I'm not in this world. I'm not a kitchen chef show guy.
Yeah.
But apparently Bradley Cooper actually starred in a television series in 2005 called Kitchen Confidential.
Okay, so that's the name of the book from Anthony Bourdain.
And he played a bad boy chef looking to make good on his life, and it didn't last more than one season.
Okay.
And then eventually he broke into Hollywood, obviously, and became the Bradley Cooper we know and love now.
Except for that Burnt, this is another piece of it. Burnt was his third flop in a row. In 2015. In 2015 alone, he tanked 3 movies. One was that summer film called Aloha, where Emma Stone was playing like an Asian woman.
Don't even remember that. Sounds like probably mildly offensive. Okay.
And the one before that was like a movie I've never even heard of. So he
had a tough run there.
He had a really tough run. And just one more aside here, that just speaks to the whole thing that like one of the reasons why all we get is recycled IP and sequels and prequels and just rehashed bullshit is because movie stars aren't bankable like they used to be.
Right.
They're just not. There's like
it doesn't work that way.
Maybe Leonardo DiCaprio falls into that category.
There's a few
that are maybes too.
Right. And even
they are not locks like they may have been once before. So that and that's why, like, because for how many Burnts out there are there? A lot. That should have been a giant hit, and it was a total failure.
I mean, we really saw this start to happen. This is a more recent phenomenon. The stars no longer driving the box office results single-handedly like they used to be able to in maybe the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, if you had one of those top 5 A-listers in a movie, everybody went and saw it. It was a hit no matter what. Then we started to see some of these huge productions fall flat on their faces. One that really pops into mind, and really just a guy that kind of encapsulates this entire experience, was Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was like the dude, top of the world, Pirates of the Caribbean, and then he whiffed multiple times on big budget, like $300 million movies, one of which was with our boy who is now a cannibal.
Oh, yes, Armie Hammer.
Armie Hammer notoriously flopped, whatever that was. I almost said Zorro, but that wasn't it. It's not Zorro. It's like, there's a horse.
The Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger was one of the ones that struck me. Like, I remember specifically reading about that and how bad the flop was, and that it would potentially change big blockbuster movies because of how much money was lost. And I mean, we've seen enough of those examples over the past 10, 15 years to where you're right. It has gotten, look, that's been a problem since you and I were little kids, that Hollywood was going back to the well over and over on rehashing, recreating sequels, trilogies, yada, yada. It's worse than it's ever been as a result of some of these huge flops, these huge disastrous, basically a financial reshuffling of the way the entertainment industry works with streaming and everything else. So, no, definitely I am fascinated by some of these, especially when there's an A-lister that is like one of the best involved, like Bradley Cooper, in these horrific flops that, like, you know, I mean, the amount of excitement that they must have had going into stuff like that, and then the end result being the complete opposite. Sad. Very unfair.
Okay, last thing I got for you today before we jump into a little bit of Marvel and WandaVision talk. You ever seen Pam and Tommy's sex tape?
Yeah, I watched it a couple of dozen times back in the day. We're gonna review that?
Yeah, that's movie club for next week.
Okay.
No. We've got a new event series coming to FX called Pam and Tommy. And it's about their relationship. It will talk about their sex tape. It is obviously like a dramatized version of this. And I'm biting on this. This sounds great.
They must have held out because this is an obvious win, and they must have held out for like the right deal. I will 1,000% watch this. I wonder if like The Dirt, that movie that they did about Motley Crue,
it
sort of spawned this concept.
I bet it pushed it forward a little bit.
But think about that. Think about Pam Anderson and how big of an icon she was during our growing up. And now she's sort of this afterthought, right?
Yeah.
Borat was the last big Pam Anderson moment.
Well, and
it was making fun of the fact that she was a thing of the past. Really.
Right. And the 90s have never been hotter, whether it's like fashion trends or that's what we're kind of pulling from for a lot of this recycled IP as well.
Yes.
It's stuff from the 90s. It's been 25-ish years now. And so just that nostalgia for like that pairing, I think now's the time to do it. Our cast is also a major draw for me. Starring as Pamela Anderson is Lily James, who is one of the who I can't really put a. She's just one of those people that I just find absolutely like wildly attractive. You know, and she is an objectively good-looking person.
Oh, I'm looking at the photos now.
But there is something that like I'm pretty sure I find her even more attractive than like most people do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still haven't seen Baby Driver.
Okay. So her as Pam Anderson is an obvious like hook for me. I'm like, yes, I watch anything with her in it.
Sure. If you've got a great cast, especially for the person playing Pam Anderson.
Yeah, and then Sebastian Stan, who you know, or maybe you don't know, but is the Winter Soldier.
Oh, yeah, the Winter Soldier. I didn't know, but Winter Soldier, sure.
Oh, sure, hon.
Love me a Winter Soldier.
He's playing Tommy Lee.
Right on.
And Seth Rogen is the guy that steals their sex tape.
Fucking love that.
He's a producer on it, so he was like, give me that role.
That's great. That's what I love Seth Rogen. I just want to be clear about that. I also would appreciate it if he never did a starring role in a movie ever again, because American Pickle was hours of my life I'll never get back, and I think he's awesome. So I also love him because he constantly taunts Ted Cruz on Twitter.
Yeah. I have not been keeping abreast of the back and forth, but I am aware of it. I don't know what they've been saying to each other, but I do know that they have been in a Twitter battle.
I'll be honest with you. It's probably not worth looking into, but if you're already there, like if you already followed Ted Cruz and
Seth
Rogen, then you've been
popping
really
up on your timeline.
You've been really enjoying a back and forth for the ages between an acting, sitting senator who's supposed to be running the state you and I live in, and Seth Rogen, the guy making Pam and Tommy and playing the dude who steals the sex tape. And I'm very excited about this project. Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
And also American Pickle.
Don't
forget about the pickle.
He becomes a human pickle. God, what a terrible movie. Okay. Excited for that, though.
Yes,
Pam and Tom.
Yeah, all right. That wraps up my tidbits and such today. So,
I had one thing to throw in.
Throw it in.
And such.
Throw it in. Back to the pile.
I have not caught Euphoria yet. I know you have not either.
I've not watched either of the 2 special episodes.
Here's what I wanted to say, short and quick. Special episode number 1 comes out, the Rue special one, right? Didn't particularly care. Knew that I could catch it whenever. No, season 2 is not on the horizon. It'll drop either late this year or next year, 2022. Wasn't something I was concerned with. It came out, very little fanfare and hype in terms of people screaming at me that I need to watch it immediately, so I figure I'm good. The second part drops. Now I'm getting the hype. Now people are starting to yell at me. Now I'm starting to see the tweets. Now I'm having people mention you got to make sure you hit both of these Euphoria specials, but hit them at a time when you're feeling good, basically. Mm-hmm. They're heavy. A lot goes on. You know Euphoria. No,
yes, I do.
I think it's funny that people even think they need to warn us because of the show. Like, if it's... Look, the first 3 episodes of Euphoria were some of the more, like, in-your-face, you better be able to handle this shit, old whitey, TV I've ever seen in my life. So to think that their specials would be anything different was just kind of funny to me. So people warning me, like, you got to watch these, but make sure you go in. And now, granted, I also appreciate that there are listeners who know me well enough to know that, you know, I don't want to watch this on a day I'm depressed.
Right.
That's not a good idea. But I am very much looking forward to catching these in the next couple weeks. At some point in the next couple weeks, I'm going to work them in.
Do you know enough to know, are these continuing plot lines forward?
Yes.
Are they acting as essentially like interludes between season 1 and season 2?
Basically. I spoke with producer Myrriah off mic before we started, and they do move the story forward enough to, in her words, basically set us up for a season 2
Gotcha.
Without pinning us down to anything too specific, but also making sure that we've had some progress since season 1 based on these 2 specials. So it's not like you cannot watch them. You know what I mean? Obviously, we don't know. Season 2 is not out yet, but I'm pretty sure you're going to need to catch these at some point. So they're on my list to get to eventually. Okay, let's move forward into the WandaVision and Marvel stuff. But first, today's episode of OCC is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the most comprehensive daily nutritional beverage I've ever tried. Great stuff. With so many stressors in life, it's difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. Busy schedules, poor sleep, exercise, stress, or simply not enough of the right foods. This is where Athletic Greens helps Barrett and I out. Their daily all-in-one superfood powder is your nutritional essential. It's by far the easiest and most delicious nutritional habit that you can add to your health routine today and empower you to take ownership of your health. It's one tasty scoop of Athletic Greens that contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food-sourced ingredients, including a multivitamin, multimineral, probiotic, green superfood, and more that all work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, increase energy and focus, aid with digestion, and support a healthy immune system, all without the need to take multiple products, which is the key here. So many of us end up running around taking 15 different things to try to keep up with our health and our nutrition. So many of you, like me, are busy. I mean, I don't even know how to feed myself most of the time, and I'm busy as hell, and stuff like Athletic Greens that can plug the holes in my in the gaps in my diet, I'm all about. Barrett, how have you enjoyed your Athletic Greens so far?
Oh, I enjoy it when I get up in the morning and I walk straight to the fridge, open up that beautiful canister, look out my window, see that big, beautiful Texas sky. And I just enjoy the hell out of my Athletic Greens. Don't be afraid to drop a scoop in a smoothie, too.
Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/dragon today. Join Barrett and I and health experts and athletes and health-conscious go-getters around the world who make a daily commitment to their health every single day and get a free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today, baby. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/dragon. DRAGON. If you don't know how to spell dragon, I can't help you much more. Free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today if you can spell athleticgreens.com/dragon.
Really
ATHLETIC greens.com/dragon.
Just makes you feel good, makes you feel better.
Makes you feel athletic and green.
I mean, both of those things and healthy on top of that.
Huzzah. Let's move on. WandaVision.
You're all caught up.
I'm all caught up.
You've seen the 3.
I'm 3 deep.
Tell me your feelings.
Episode 1. We get right into it. Black and white. Full-blown Nick at Night, I Love Lucy style sitcom with basically 2 characters. Wanda, the woman, and Vision, her robot husband. Mm-hmm. As a dude who's totally unfamiliar with both of these characters and superheroes, from the get-go, I don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Not until episode 3 with the gum situation do I even start to understand that Homeboy is legitimately not a human being. Like, the inside of his body is not organs. Mm-hmm. In fact, It's a loosely drawn cartoon of 3 gears that, when jammed with gum, cause him to basically act drunk.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. But the first episode, you really don't know what you're getting into by the end of it even. You don't... I think there was one of those sort of spooky moments in episode 1.
Yeah, it's when the boss starts choking.
Yes. And you get the feeling like, all right, and you touched on this, like there's some darkness in this show, and it's very eerie, and you weren't wrong. By the time we're in episode 2 and that freaky moment happens, I mean, it really takes you out of it. You're like, fuck, dude, that was eerie. Like,
yes.
I feel...
Eerie is the perfect word. It's just straight up, like, kind of chilling.
Because it's, something bad is... Or something is off.
Something's off.
Something is very wrong. Then we start to see the neighbors, the whole situation. His neighbor's doing he's trimming his hedges. And then he trims straight through like a concrete block and then continues to go like 2.5 feet.
Yeah.
And Vision is out in the front yard watching him. And because Vision is very clearly not a human being, he doesn't have all the normal social aspects of a normal human. So he doesn't really know how to react to this guy, which puts you in an even weirder space where you're like, what the hell is going on here?
And you do get the sense that both Wanda and Vision, they know that something is amiss.
Right.
But both are having a difficult time, it would appear, like kind of circling in on it, figuring out what exactly it is. They can't, even...
It's almost dream-esque, this whole...
Starts in the first episode. They got this date on the calendar. They don't know what the hell the date is about.
What the fuck's this circle? The heart.
The heart, right.
Yeah.
So it's all very, it's a mystery, right? And they are kind of attempting to figure out the mystery as well, if they can even fully grasp that there is this mystery to be solved, which episode 3 pushes forward a little bit. By the way, I loved the Brady Bunch setting.
Yes.
Was really good. And that's clearly where we're going here, is that each of these episodes is going to like progress a little bit further in the history of sitcoms and kind of like pick references and set designs and motifs from some of the most famous.
The intro's going to change.
The intro's going to change.
We get color, obviously. Like, it is very much an exploration of television in and of itself, which is cool. The name WandaVision lends itself to that, too.
Yeah. So through 3, are you hooked? Are you hooked by this story, even though you don't really know who Wanda Maximoff and Vision kind of are?
Yes.
So as it relates to their role in the Avengers and their comic book characters?
Absolutely. The episode 1, I'll be honest with you, wasn't entirely hooked. Like, I wasn't like all in on it or anything like that. I thought it was really fun and interesting and obviously unlike anything else I've watched in quite some time. By the time I got to the end of episode 3 and we're doing the full-blown zoom out to see that what we're dealing with is perhaps some kind of fake world
Truman Show-ish
bubble type of situation.
Back to the beginning.
That she may have built herself. I'm also... girlfriend has Marvel knowledge, all right? She knows the universe much better than I do. And she has alluded to me that there is something that occurred in the Marvel universe in the course of these more recent films that could perhaps have an impact on our storyline as it relates to WandaVision. So I'm not going to throw that out there yet because, Barrett, it could be a very big spoiler. But what we do know through episode 3 is that Wanda and Vision are operating in this is not normal world.
Right.
All right? Time isn't working correctly. Babies are brewed and born in a matter of hours. Neighbors are falling off track. It seems as if it looks like that one woman is ejected from the bubble.
Yes.
It looks like Wanda has built a world for her and Vision to inhabit.
Yeah. Yes.
In some capacity. Now, to what extent, we do not know yet. And that is the great mystery that we will start to delve into next episode, on episode 4 or whatever. But I'm absolutely hooked. I love the way this is done. And it's cool that it's like, how do I put this? Most of the things we watch have a ton of curse words, blood, sex, guts. Just things that generally you couldn't really get away with watching with like a kid. Mm-hmm. This show... I mean, look, it has its moments where it's scary, but for the most part, it is legitimately like a full-blown, this could be on a regular cable channel, right?
Yeah.
So that element of it being sort of wholesome, having a wholesome angle, is different than anything else I'm watching, too.
So that actually creates a perfect segue for what I was going to say next about this show. And just to start, I want to say that a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a coworker who is on his way through the Game of Thrones books. He's almost caught up to all the books. And he's like, and then I'm going to watch the series.
So he hasn't seen the series?
Has not seen any of the series. He like made a commitment. He's going to read the books and then watch the series.
Got it.
And I got so excited for him, and it like refreshed my love for Game of Thrones thinking about seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Just, I was like, this is such a treat for you that you haven't seen this yet, and that you get to go start with seasons 1 and 2, which are very good, and then get into seasons 3 and 4, which are like my 2 favorite seasons of television ever. And it really like you know, we have had a kind of an ongoing conversation about how this legacy will age and change and shift over the years, and what will it look like when we're a year removed. And we kind of talked about that last year, and then how about 5, how about 10, so on and so forth, until we're 25 years later and we do the rewatch all over again on Patreon, and we're 70 years old.
That's the plan. Yes.
60, I guess, somewhere in that range.
Math.
And so that's the first thing is I really like just having that brief conversation and thinking about those middle seasons, which were so fabulous. Just got me like thinking about all the things that I loved about Game of Thrones and how good the series was. Okay. Fast forward, I'm watching WandaVision. I am probably in between you and your girlfriend as far as my knowledge of the Marvel universe and the comic books and the characters and their backstories and their origins and all of that. And I still have not seen Endgame, but I've seen Infinity War.
Okay.
And I think Endgame is where some of this WandaVision, Doctor Strange, multiverse stuff kind of starts coming into play.
Got it.
Which is what I think this is kind of spinning off of or spinning into.
Right. Can't tell off of or into, but it's got to be one of them.
But one of the things that I have noticed, and that has, you know, that I was in tune enough with to notice, is our little commercials here all include the word or the branding of Hydra. And Hydra is well known if you're, you know, a comic book fan, Marvel comic book fan, or a fan of the movies, because they are the kind of like, they are the recurring terrorist organization group that is kind of like always mucking up stuff and doing bad shit.
People say Hail Hydra? Is that a thing?
Yeah, because they at one point they're like very Nazi-ish. They're led by like some Nazis, and they have like Third Reich ties, and they make it, they kind of relate it to like real history by kind of like creating a backstory that's actually like they like kind of had something to do with Hitler and the Nazis and like all that type of stuff. And so I started doing, you know, a little bit of a dive onto like Hydra and reading the Wikipedia and all this type of stuff.
Barrett's got no free time on his hands.
So what I wanted to say here is that this show already, through 3 30-minute episodes, has me looking into the canon of these characters and reading about the history and going into like these little like, you know, down these paths to educate myself about this backstory and what does this mean and where have they been in the comic books and like what's all that to say. I'm actually, for the first time ever, because of these first 3 episodes, a little bit more like, okay, like I'm getting why people love Marvel, because just like Game of Thrones, if you're a comic book fan, the amount of canon out there, the amount of texts and world building and like incredibly, you know, long and ongoing stories about these characters is really, really fascinating. And it's the same type of thing where you have had very skilled writers and illustrators like building these things out for decades.
Right.
And so if this is the first time that I've actually felt that hook into that stuff.
Oh, you felt it hit a little. Okay.
Right. And
Got you.
because the movies don't do that for me. The movies are like, here's Tony Stark, here's Captain America, now let's accidentally ruin this city. Oh, but then everybody's fine. The city's not ruined anymore.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
no, there's more weight to this. There's more.
Yeah, because they've gone niche here, because they're actually like, because this is not, oh, do you like the Marvel movies? Then you'll like WandaVision. It's like, oh, these 2 people from the Marvel movies, which didn't get a lot of time, actually have really interesting stories. And here's their little thing over here on the side that's not actually like the Marvel movies. Now let's dig into this and explore. And it's opening my eyes up to the world of like the Marvel canon and why people are interested in those other big movies. And it's because they already, the people that are obsessed with MCU and with those movies have comic book knowledge.
Right.
they understand the characters on a different level that the movies, to me, don't ever hit on or don't ever dig into and don't ever really. They don't intrigue me in that level. And so
for people, it's like for your coworker reading all the books for Game of Thrones and then going and watching the series, and really that's the way I ended up experiencing it. You suggested season 1 to me, I killed that in about 4 days or whatever. Then I read every book before the next season dropped. So other than season 1, that's how I enjoyed the show. And for my purposes, it was always this like, I sort of regretted it and then I sort of didn't. I hated knowing what was coming. But in the end, all said and done, because of seasons 7 and 8 in particular, I was very happy that I had that book experience and knowledge, and it certainly played into how much I became obsessed with the show, the universe, all these different side stories and shit that you could get into in the text and the reading online, and like that level of depth that you're speaking to that makes the hook for Marvel. Yeah. Now that makes sense. I totally understand why it's not my thing, though.
You talked about like the adult themes, right? Like just like sell me on it. I'm automatically going to gravitate towards Game of Thrones, which is like still not real world, but more of it's a more realistic world with a more adult themes about family and sex and love and
many normal
violence
characters
and
dealing with
war
things, though.
and all of this type of stuff.
Not everybody has a fucking superpower.
Yeah, so that's an easier sell and a more automatic, like, yeah, I'm into that than like some Titan caped up crusaders in green spandex and like superpowers. Right. On the surface, that's more interest. The one is more interesting to me than the other. But it's and then this got me thinking, well, like, man, should all the Marvel stuff just been TV series?
Right.
But at the same time, like, you don't have one of the best parts about the action movies is the action, and you need those giant budgets, and you can't do that over the course of 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Although WandaVision is apparently the most expensive television show per episode ever made.
What?
Yeah.
How the okay, there must be a lot going on in these back half of this thing.
I mean, but even just look at, like, they're doing an entirely different set. They are literally building a new house set for every single episode.
Okay, good point.
I
can see how this was expensive. Never mind. Yeah.
And I'm sure that there is some more Marvel-y movie stuff.
Right, I'm sure there's some stuff coming up. Well, even in the zoom out at the end of episode 3, you're like, you get the feeling, they could have spent some money here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just it's kind of bittersweet because it's like I totally love that I am getting the feel for what makes this genre
of Marvel is in particular, because you and I have been so confused by it,
interesting and so appealing to so many people.
Yeah.
But the movies, which really just like barely scratch the surface on this type of stuff to me, and don't really give you an opportunity to learn
about more mainstream audience, certainly.
And so in a way, they just kind of like do almost like a disservice to the comic books.
I know what you mean. They lose the depth and that sort of niche feel where you get that in WandaVision, you know?
And so I'm loving this through 3 episodes. I'm very, very hooked. I love both of our main characters. The story is cool. And building on this mystery and like letting me kind of like drift in the wind and being like, oh my God, what does Hydra have to do with this? What is the sword pendant? What is sword? What is shield? Remind me what all this stuff is again. Is like it now not only do I like the show, but I'm also getting that like secondary, kind of IV drip of like, oh, now let me also go read about this stuff on the side.
Oh, they got you good.
Yeah.
If you're reading about this shit on the side, then you're in.
Yeah.
And man, now you've got me thinking to like, what shit did I miss in those first 3 episodes that I need to go Google and look at? I wanted to bring something up before we forget today too.
There are apparently like just dozens of Easter eggs in every single episode.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to spend a lot of time on Google this afternoon. Speaking of Game of Thrones, new series adaptation announced.
That's
Tales of Dunk and Egg, a prequel to the events of Game of Thrones, in early development for HBO, announced last week. Don't want to get too stoked, okay? But obviously this would be a 1-hour show based on the series of fantasy novellas by George R.R. Martin, which follow the adventures of Sir Duncan the Tall and young Aegon Targaryen V, Egg, otherwise known as Egg, 90 years prior to the events of A Song of Ice and Fire. So really right before A Song of Ice and Fire, which is what we explore in Game of Thrones, the television show. A Song of Ice and Fire was the book series. There are 3 novellas in the Tales of Dunk and Egg series to date. The Hedge Knight, which came out in 1998. The Sworn Sword in 2003, and The Mystery Knight in 2010. Those three were collected, published together as A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in 2015. For everybody who's confused about where the final two books of Game of Thrones, of A Song of Ice and Fire are, George has been just collecting money and writing novellas for HBO to make other shows with so that he can become even more rich and powerful in the next life. I'm just joking. He doesn't seem to give a fuck about any of that stuff. I really don't know what that dude's deal is. But another good thing to look forward to for everybody in the Clam fam obviously needs to be appraised of all Game of Thrones activities. Tales of Dunk and Egg, another potential in the pipeline. Fingers crossed. Hope things go well. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm ready to get back into the Martinverse.
Well, now I know you're ready because now you've been drawn back in by the naivete of a coworker and his journey. It's
true.
His journey.
Yeah.
Anything else today, Barrett?
That's it, man. That's it. I'm looking forward to more WandaVision.
When does it air?
It comes out on Fridays.
Thank you. Didn't know that.
And this new movie on HBO Max starring Denzel
Washington. That will do it for today's episode of OCC, produced by Myrriah, Gossett, and Mike Moody Garcia of Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. Huge thanks again to our sponsor from today, Athletic Greens. Make sure you hit athleticgreens.com/dragon today. And obviously, do not forget, Barrett and I are working our way through The Sopranos, one of the greatest television series ever made, HBO's classic crime drama, episode by episode, with one podcast per episode, one ad-free, spoiler-free podcast per episode of The Sopranos on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles, patreon.com, patreon.com/oystersclamscockles to join a tier for a minimum of just a $5 pledge per month. You can take on The Sopranos with Barrett and I, episode by episode, week by week, ad-free, spoiler-free. Barrett never watched the show before. Me, been through it several times. It's available and friendly to first-timers and repeat watchers. We are through 7 episodes. Episode 8 coming this week, Thursday. It will drop Thursday afternoon. Season 1, Episode 8 of The Sopranos on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Boca, I believe, is the episode we are digesting this week on Patreon. Having a blast so far. Super, super excited to get into episode 8. And then finally, the last, 5 episodes of season 1. If you're not watching The Sopranos with us, you're missing out. If you've seen the show, rewatch it. Come through. Do this with me. It is awesome. Rewatching it as a 33-year-old, having not watched it in several years. Every single episode has hit different. Barrett and I discuss all the incredible throwback stuff from the 90s, the ways the show is hitting different for me now than then. Walk through all the major plot points, where we're at with each character each week. One episode per podcast. Patreon, patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Come enjoy The Sopranos with Barrett and I. Episodes drop every Thursday. We've been watching The Sopranos every Wednesday night. Gives us something to do Wednesday nights. Join us. Work your way through. You can catch up fast and have a blast. Follow us on social media. We are on Instagram at oystersclamscockles, Twitter at clamsandcockles, and of course facebook.com/oystersclamscockles. My name is Ross Bolen, and you can follow me at WRBOLEN, at WRBolen on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and listen to my mental health and comedy show, The Ross Bolen Podcast, available wherever you listen to OCC. Mr. Dudley, where can we follow you on social media?
Check me out, social media, Twitter and Instagram at Barrett Dudley.
Everybody enjoy your rest of your week. Watch The Sopranos Season 1, Episode 8. We'll catch you on Patreon this Thursday. And until our next helping, goodbye, friends.